Alrighty, we are on Graphing Point Slope Form with my overall favorite font. Cocktail Bubbly.
Oh, I remember.
I love it. Dafont.com. DAFONT.com.
Do you pay for fonts?
No. What am I?
I mean, if you like that much, I mean, I'm not judging.
You can pay for fonts. There's crazy fonts out there that you can pay for. These are all public domain. So, now you guys got to realize, I find some pretty crazy fonts, but for every font that makes the cut, there's a lot that get chucked off the team. I know. All right. In order to graph a linear function, I have given you 3 ways with which to do this. Right? 1, slope intercept. What does that look like? Y equals mx plus b. And you all know how that works. You go to b, and then you count your slope. Rise and run, which is m, and then you connect the dots. Yes? Excellent. The second method I've given you is x and y intercepts. I am indeed. X and y intercepts, which is 0x and, hey man, oh, not 0x, dummy head, 0y and x 0. I've been playing with it all day.
That doesn't sound good.
Yeah. I was making it into the shape of the bullet from Mario Brothers, the big giant bullet, which I turned out, somebody in grade 9 told me it's Bullet Bill. But I was doing that, and then I was flying it around. That's all I meant, Mr. Sager.
That's why it's so warm.
It is warm, yes. It's warm because it's been in my pocket. Ferris Bueller, with the girl at the end with the gummy bears. You guys have seen Ferris Bueller, right? When the principal gets on the bus, and the girl, the nerdy girl, would you like a gummy bear? They made it in my pocket so they're really warm and soft. And then he flicks it at the bus bench in front of him and it sticks because it's disgusting.
And he always gets mad at it.
Yeah. What, Amrit?
Can I have a booklet?
Mm-hmm. We appear to be in an impasse. Well, you need a booklet. I have booklets. Does Walmart bring you the stuff you buy? There you go. Yeah, I don't have a website. So this, you substitute in 0, you find the x, you substitute in 0, you find the y, you put the 2 dots, connect the dots, done. Those are the 2 new ways. Now, of course, you had the old-fashioned way, which was table of values. I'm writing that in red because we're in grade 10 and we don't need to make tables of values anymore. We can do stuff with algebra. Okay? Everybody knows those 3, yes? All right, now I'm going to give you a 4th. The 4th, and this will become your best friend. Point slope form. Okay? You guys are smart kids. Y equals mx plus b is slope intercept because you got the slope and the intercept, right? X and y intercept form uses 2 intercepts, right? Table of values is all points, correct? Okay, so point slope form uses what? What must it use? A point, which is x and y, and a slope, which is m. Cool? And this is what it looks like. Y minus y1 equals m x minus x1. And y1 and x1 are, just let me erase this, known points on the graph. Okay? And here's how it works. Oops, sorry. Okay, that is 2 points on the graph, yes? Everybody agree? 2 points on a line. We can connect them, we're in business, yes? What math can we do with 2 points on a graph that would apply to this unit? What could we find? Somebody said run. Right, which is slope, yeah? So could we find the slope here? What would it be? 7 minus 3 over 4 minus 1, yes? Right? Everyone agree? Okay. What is that? 4 over 3, correct? Everybody cool? So that's an M, yes? Everybody's good? Okay. So using this form right here that I've just given you, put in what we now know. We know y minus y1 equals, what's M? 4/3 x minus x1. Is everybody cool with that? Everybody cool? Okay, now, I told you that y1 and x1 are known points on the graph. Right? Well, on this graph, we know these 2 points, don't we? That's an x, that's a y, that's an x, that's a y. Agreed? So could we put them in here? So y minus, what's one of the y's? Pardon? 3. Okay. Equals 4/3 x. And what's the x that goes with 3? Minus 1. Everybody cool? Everybody cool with that? Okay, now, this is how it works. I shouldn't say how. This is why it works. Okay? Now, do you see an x and a y? Yes. Now, we know these points are already on the graph, don't we? Okay? So watch what happens. We used 1 and 3, correct? So now we're going to use 4 and 7. 4 is an x, right? So where does it go? Wherever I see what? X. So I could put it right here, couldn't I? So that's going to be 4/3 4 minus 1, correct? And that's a y, yes? So where can I put it? Anywhere I see a y. So that'd be right here, wouldn't it? 7 minus 3. Cool? Everybody cool? Okay, watch. What's 7 minus 3? 4. What's 4 minus 1? So I got 4/3 times 3, yes? What happens to that 3? It cancels, so I get 4 equals 4. Is that true? So what does this tell me? When I started with this point, and I already told you this was going to be on the line, so you knew it was going to work. But if you didn't know it was going to work, we just put that in where the x's were and the y's were, and it showed that it was going to work. Is everybody cool with that? So, what this means, and this is the mistake kids make with it, that negative sign means just like it meant when we were doing slope, right? Minus 4, what do we write there? Positive 4, right? So since these were both positive, we left them as negative. See how the signs are reversed? Is everyone okay with this? Just the algebra, not how it works yet, just the algebra. Everybody is okay with that, yes? Now, if I were to graph this thing, okay, you're not going to be able to write this down. I'm going to show you. If I were to graph this thing, if I were to graph this, that was the point I had, yes? Or the points I had, right? 1, 3. Everyone agrees? 4. That's what it would look like, yeah? Everyone agree? Okay, now, I told you that this is y minus 1 equals 4/3, y minus 3 equals 4/3 x minus 1, yes? Okay, now, because we know the slope, I can go down 1, 2, 3, 4, and run 1, 2, 3. And that point's going to be on this line, isn't it? Okay. What is that point right there? It's a little hard to see. I can zoom in if you need me to. What is the address of that point? -2, -1. Agreed? Okay. What if I put -2 in here? What will happen? What would go in for x? -2. What's -2 minus 1? -3. What's going to happen to those 2 3's? Cancel, but the negative isn't going to cancel, is it? And I'm going to be left with -4 over here. Cool? What's going to happen over here? -1 minus 3 is what? -4. See how it works? Everybody cool? Now, what if I went down 4 more and over 3? Where would I be? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. I'd be right there at -5, -5, right? Would that work in here? Yes. So we know that this point right here, that is my starting point. Just like the slope intercept form, the B is your starting point. Okay? But remember, I started at 1, 3 because if I come back to here, y minus 3 equals 4/3 x minus 1. The point was 1, 3, right? So 1 would go in there, right? 1 minus 1 is 0. 3 minus 3 is 0. That's why that sign has to be reversed, because you need 0 to equal 0. Does everybody get it? So, oops, wrong thing. Sorry, idiot. Not you guys, me. Okay, so now you know that this form, these are the known points on the graph, and they are your starting point. But what do you have to remember about the sign? They are opposite sign. Now, you've seen why it works algebraically. Now I just want to get the mechanics down for you guys, okay? So, we'll go to this very first one. There it is. Please notice, I'm going to slide this down here. Oops, I left a bracket. There we go. What then do we know about this line based on that plan? Do we know the starting point and do we know its slope? What are those two things? Where would we start if we were going to graph this thing? Where? 2, -1? Don't x's go first?
No, -1 and 2.
Okay. -1 and 2, but we got to remember it's opposite signs, right? So it would be 1, -2 with what slope? With what slope he waited patiently. It is -2/3. Thank you, Tiffany. So if we were going to graph this, right? Again, you don't need to graph it, but watch. If we were going to graph it, it was y plus 2 equal -2/3 x minus 1, right? It was, wasn't it? Y plus 2 x minus 1. Okay. Where would we start? At 1, -2, correct? And we would have a slope of -2/3. So I'm down 2 and out 3, yeah? There's another dot that would be on it. Agreed? And what is that coordinates? 4, 4, negative 4, correct? Okay, so put that up here and see if it works. What's 4 minus 1? 3. What happens to those two 3's? Cancel, so I'm left with negative 2, right? What's negative 4 plus 2? Does negative 2 equal negative 2? So you can see that from that starting point, we can now work it everywhere. Understand? If you have a point and you have a slope, you have the whole line. Just like if you had a point and a y-intercept, you had the whole line in that form. Okay? Everybody good? All right, so now back to where we were working. Just did it again because I'm an idiot. So what's this next one? What's the point I'm going to start at? Negative 3, positive 4. And then where am I going to go? I'm going to drop 1. My m equals negative 1/4, which means from that point, I would go down 1 and right or left 4. Right. Or I would go up 1 and left 4. Does everybody get it? Okay. Look at 3. 3 looks different. Is it? What's my starting point, do you think? Negative 2, negative 1. What's my slope? It's a tricky one. 1. Because if there were brackets there, what would be the number in front of it? 1. So since it's positive 1, how would I get to the next point? I would go up 1 and right 1, or down 1 and left 1. Is everybody good? It's much darker in here than it was in the first block after lunch. Do we need lights on or are we okay? All right. So look at the next one. The next one's also tricky because it looks slightly different. What is your starting point, do you think? Negative 4 and? 0, because there's nothing with y. And what number represents nothing? 0. What's my slope? My m equals positive 1/2. So if I started at negative 4, 0, where would I need to go? Up 1 and right 2, or down 1 and left 2. Do I need to write that out right now, or are we getting that? Okay. All right, look at the next one. It's snaky 2. What's our starting point? Negative 5, negative 3, and what's my slope? Negative 1. So down 1, right 1, or up 1. Easy peasy, right? Next one's easy. I'm back to the original. What's the starting point? 1, 10, and what's my slope? 4/5, easy peasy. And I think that's all of them. Everybody cool? There's no problem with it, right? And now you're set for every possible scenario you could come into effect with, right? You got a slope and a point, you're good. You got a slope and an intercept, you're good. You got x and y's, you're good. And you can work in between all three, don't you? Because all three forms have x's and y's, right? Okay, so let's look at that first one. We're just going to graph it. For now, we're just going to graph it. So everybody over here, graph this. What's your starting point? What's your slope? So your starting point is -1, +2. Everyone agree? Okay, now what's your slope? 2/3. So what is that, Bronwyn? Up 2 and right 1, 2, 3. Or down 2 and left 1, 2, 3. Does everyone agree? And then I would connect the line, yes? Now, That's showing me you can graph it. Now, I want you to prove that you did it right. If we did it right, what do we know about that point and that point? Where will they work? In the equation. What is the coordinates of that point right there? 2, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Okay. This is my equation. What goes in for y? 4 minus 2 would have to equal 2/3. What's x? 2 plus 1, correct? Okay. What's 4 minus 2? 2. What's 2 plus 1? 3. What happens to these 3's? Cancel. What's left? Does 2 equal 2? So did we do it right? Does everybody understand? Now, don't do what I'm about to do. Okay? Don't. But watch what happens, because I want you to believe me. I want you to be cognizant of that negative thing. Okay? What is this point on the graph? -4, 0, right? So what would go in for x? -4. -4 plus 1 is -3. They'd cancel, right? And I would have -2 on the right. -4 minus, or 0 minus 2? -2. Does -2 equal -2? See how it still works? Even with the negative. That's why we have to reverse these signs when we put our points on the graph. Because it's not saying what the point is, it's saying where we need to go to get back to 0. Does everybody understand that difference? Okay, so what's the next one? Where are we going to start? -5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and -1, right? And what's our slope? -2. So down to right 1, up to left 1. Could I go up 4 and left 2? Could I go up 8 and left 4? Could I go down 16 and right 8? Yes. Everybody with me? Do we need to prove it, or you people believe me now? You believe me, right? You just substitute back in. That is the key to so much of your guys' math for the next couple of years. Substituting points from a graph that are x and y back in. And the mistake everyone makes is, if I tell you to use this point right here, right there, that point being -7, +3, if you're going to put that back in here, you got to remember, when you're putting it in, you leave it as the point. So if it says minus x, and your x is a -7, you're doing -7, which ends up being +7. Understand? That is the biggest mistake you guys make with all the slope, all that stuff. And you're going to be using this concept with curves that look like this, curves that look like this. You're going to be using it with curves that look like this. You're going to be using it with curves that look like this, a V. You're going to be learning it with a curve, using it with a curve that looks like this. Wait till you see this. There's a dotted line there, a dotted line there, a dotted line there, and your curve goes in that section, and that section. And you're going to learn how to graph that. And how to do this stuff with that. So that is why it's so important that, I know it sounds stupid that I keep hammering at it over and over and over again. But it's because it's like learning to walk, right? You can't run, which is this, before you can do this. Cool? Okay. So now, let's see what you guys can do with this. This question is a perfect example of a final question, if you're all wondering what to do. Read that question. It covers perpendicular lines. Was that one of our learning outcomes? It's in your notes, Bronwyn. It's in your notes. And I'm putting it on YouTube. But if you need a shot of me in it, okay. Does that cover one of your outcomes? Here's your outcome sheet. Here's your outcome sheet. Perpendicular. Does that cover one outcome? Yes. The equation of one line is this. Moving an equation around. Does that require knowledge of polynomials? Is that one of your outcomes? Yes. Huh? If you modify it and have a key for it, right? What else is it? They cross at the y-axis. That means they both cross the y-axis at the same spot, right? Is that an intercept? Is that something you need to know? There. Do you see what I mean? Okay, so what do we know so far? We know this line. Can I graph this line as it is right now? Could I use slope-intercept form? Not as it is right now. Could I move it to get it to slope-intercept form? Yes. Could I use x and y intercepts? I could. I could use either one, couldn't I? So you would decide how to do that. Now here's the problem for me as a math teacher. What if you do slope-intercept form? You know it will work, but you do the moving around wrong for me to mark it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you see where the problems lie? You got to be careful with stuff like that. So what do you guys want to do? Do you want to use slope-intercept? Do you want to use x and y intercepts? Or do you want me to do both? Both? You guys do one. You guys choose which one you would do, slope-intercept or x and y intercepts, and I'll do them both, okay? I'm going to graph that right there. That's slope-intercept form. Obviously, I got y by itself, right? And then if I were doing it in x and y intercepts, x would be x. 2x plus 8 would equal 0. 2x would equal negative 8. X would equal negative 4, which I have right there. Yes? And negative y plus 8 would equal 0. Y would equal 8, which I had right there. Those are the two ways you can graph that line. Covers a learning outcome, yes? Everybody cool? Everybody was able to graph that line, yes? Now, there's more to this question. What do you know about the second line? You know two things about it. What do you know? Yes. It's going to be perpendicular to this, yes? So whatever this guy's slope is, which we know is 2, this guy's slope is 2 over 1, yes? So what's the other guy's slope? Negative 1/2. So I know the slope of line 2 is negative 1/2 because it has to be perpendicular. So now I have a slope, right? If I have a slope and a point, or a slope and a y-intercept, do I have the equation of the line? Yeah, because I have both of those, right? I've got slope-intercept form and point-slope form now. Do I know anything else about this second line? Two perpendicular lines cross at the y-axis. What does cross mean? They're going to bump into each other. Where? At the y-axis. Where's the only place that this line crosses the y-axis? Right here, yeah? So where does the other line have to cross the y-axis? Right there. So do I have a y-intercept? So what's this guy? What is line 2's y-intercept? 8. So do I have a slope and an intercept now? So can I get the form? What is line 2? Y equals mx plus b. What's mx? No, the m first. Negative 1/2 x. And what's the slope? What's the intercept? Everybody see what's happened there? Each single piece of information was a lesson, wasn't it? This question puts all three of them together. That's what you're trying to do on your final exam. Okay? And it's just dumb luck that this happened today when we were talking about it. I didn't plan that. I mean, I could lie and tell you I did, but I don't think any of you would believe me anyway. That hurts. I would believe you. Is everybody cool? None of that's new, is it? We know what perpendicular means. We know what y-intercepts are. We know how to graph. Everybody's good, yeah? Okay. Everyone is good with point-slope form? Okay, we're going to do a little bit of algebra, and then we're done this whole unit. There's one more form, and it's a form I haven't named yet, but you've seen it. General form looks like this. And he has an ugly cousin. Standard form. And standard form is simply this. ax plus by equals c. Please notice, it looks like a regular trinomial, yes? Still has an x and a y, correct? So it's the exact same as the other two, right? They've got x's and y's. But what's not in general form? What letter have we been using a lot this unit that isn't in the general form? M. General form and standard form, they have no slope. Okay? You cannot use them for slope unless you move them around. Does everybody understand that? So they are the exact same as point slope form, slope intercept form. They're exactly the same except the following rules. A, that coefficient, okay, A has to be greater than 0, has to be positive. It has to be an integer. Everybody remembers what an integer is, right? No decimals, no fractions. Got it? Okay, actually, A isn't an integer, I'm sorry. A has to be a whole number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all the way up. Okay? B has to be an integer. So B can be negative, but again, no decimals, no fractions. And C has to be an integer. Does everybody understand? No decimals, no fractions. A has to be positive. Got it? So look at this one. Does this guy meet all that criteria? Is 3 a natural number and not a decimal? Yes. Is B an integer? Yes. -2, not a decimal. Is C an integer? Yes, so we're good. Now, if I want to make this look like this, I don't know where my B went there. What do I have to do? Because this is hard to graph, isn't it? But this is easy to graph. Can I move them around? What do I got to do to this to make it look like this? What would I do? What's got to move? I would move the 2y because I need y to be positive and by itself, right? So that's going to get me 3x plus 8 equals 2y. Now what would I do? Divide by 2. What would I divide by 2, Alma? The y. And if I do something to the right side, what do I got to do to the left? Same thing. So I get 3 over 2x plus 4 equals y. Now, can I graph that without even thinking about it? Graphing that is difficult, isn't it? Well, it's not difficult, but it's a pain in the rump. Graphing that takes 2 seconds, doesn't it? Where do I start? 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And what's my slope? Up, 1, 2, 3, over 1, 2, graphed, done. Right? If you don't know slope-intercept form, you got to graph that. You're either doing x and y intercepts or making a table of values like in grade 9. Pain in the butt, right? What about the next one? What form is that in, general or standard? Standard. Do you think we do anything different to get it in slope-intercept form? No, get y by itself. What are you going to do? What would you move? Okay, then you've got negative 4y equals negative 3x plus 8. Now what are you going to do? You don't have to move the y first, Elma. Trust me. What would you do now? Divide by what, Scarlett? Negative 4, negative 4, negative 4. What happens to these 4s? Cancel, and I'm left with y. Is y by itself now? Am I happy? Okay. Negative divided by a negative. What happens there? Positive 3/4 x. And 8 divided by negative 4? Negative 2. And then I graph. Now, Elma whispered quietly to Bronwyn, why wouldn't you move the y? I think. So, because if she moves y, then y is over here and y is positive. Then she's got to move the 8 over here, and the 8 becomes negative, and you end up with the same answer anyway, don't you? That's why. It didn't matter. And we could graph that in our sleep, right? Do I have to graph it? Do I need to graph that? Where do you start? Negative 2 takes 2 seconds. Slope's 3/4. Up 1, 2, 3. Over 1, 2, 3, 4. Draw. Cool? Now, I do apologize that we are going right almost to the bell, guys, but we did use 35 minutes at the beginning to discuss our final. X and Y intercepts, just to remind you, if I'm using X and Y intercepts, if I'm using Y, what happens to the X? The Y-intercept is 0y, the X-intercept is x0. Then I substitute in, don't I? When that 0 goes in for x, what happens to x? It's gone. I end up with 2y equals 10, correct? When that 0 goes in for y, I end up with 5x equals 10. And then I know my math, don't I? What is y? And what is x? Y is 5 and x is 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. X is 1, 2. And I graph it. It's essentially the 9th grade, isn't it? Right? But we're not doing tables of values anymore. We're getting there. We've got our equation. And just let me look at this. 18, page 18. I want you to attempt 18 and 19 for homework. Page 18, yeah. Oh. So whatever the page is that starts with write down an example of the equation of a line of each form.
19, 20.
Okay, so 19 and 20, and that's it. Okay, you don't need to do anything more. Tomorrow we'll do the graphing review, which is the end of this, and I will take one more. There's one more lesson. You won't even need notes for it. You'll be able to do it on here. Okay? And you will get the outline or the outcomes also in plain English. Okay? No, carry on.
But you're stopping.
No, I wasn't stopping you. I'm stopping myself because there was something else I wanted to say, and I don't remember what it was. So if I did that to my mother, she would say it must have been a lie. Every time. But this wasn't a lie. This was something that I needed to say. Oh, I remember. It's Charles.
Really?
Yes. I know my middle name. Why would you be that way? Guys, do you need a rubric, or is that example of what would be a really good question for a final good enough? Okay? Is somebody in this room needing to do some kind of test after school today? Somebody asked me today, but it must not have been one of you people. That happens. I talk about guys too. Not so much. Like something like that one question on Friday or Thursday. I might say do that, but I wouldn't mark it because it's not your guys' fault that we're out of time. Right? It's not your guys' fault at all.
Okay.
It's because we lost days. Right?
Yeah. Okay.
Do you need privacy?
No, I just forgot what I was going to say.
Must have been a lie. See how annoying it is?
Yeah, it's
I've been listening to that for 40 years.
And also, when are we doing the interviews?
Tomorrow and the next day. It should have started today, but it took 35 minutes to talk about our final.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you. Okay. Am I asking?
See you, Myers.
Of course not.
I was kind of worried because you're like, anything else?
Don't be silly.
Okay. I was worried. Okay. Thank you.
I was just gonna ask you if I could do the IB next year because I'm filling out my course outline today.
Of course you can.
Yeah, but don't you? Because I'm getting like
No,
80.
I don't think that. I think that you are one of those people that needs to accept that maybe you're going to get a 4.
Yeah.
If you can handle that,
Yeah.
then do it. But there are people that cannot handle that. And they would rather drop out of Math IB, which is stupid, because they can't handle getting a 3 or a 2. That's dumb.
But then do I have to write the exam?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I know. You want some? Take them. Take the whole pack. Maybe your parents like it. So you're Chinese, right?
No, I'm Vietnamese.
I thought you were Chinese. God, I can't keep track of you guys.
So on my check my progress, there's one thing that still says NHI. I'm pretty sure I did.
Well, let's find out, shall we? First of all,